Okay, so I'm not going to argue with my friend Richard about the continuous manufacturing. I mean, of course, melt. I agree also that melt coating is also a continuous manufacturing technique. There is no argument there. But unfortunately, when I'm talking today about continuous manufacturing, I'm going to talk about the 15 cases approved, 14 cases approved by the FDA. Sorry for that. So basically, well, Fernando could not, for those of you who knows Fernando Mucio, Professor Mucio, he could not be today here and was in Canada up to last night, so I flew here to cover for him. And I'm here, that's why the presentation that was going to be happening this morning it's now in the afternoon. So basically, the presentation here today is split it into, in a certain way, two parts. The first is a little bit of implementation of how CM was implemented in oral solid dose, but also at the same time discussing what's new. In terms of not in technologies themselves, but in the regulatory side. The FDA is right now implementing what they call advanced manufacturing, and we want to discuss a little bit about what is there and what we call advanced manufacturing as well, and what are the challenges and opportunities that for advanced manufacturing in pharma can happen here, at least here in the United States. I mean, with those shaking times, right? You know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. With all these ideas, all these questions about reshoring that are happening not only in the last few months, but also in the last years, I will talk a little bit about that as well. What may be needed to do that, and how to do this in a kind of efficient way. And finally, in order to do that, we need some tech transfer capabilities that I'm going to discuss a little bit. This is the second part of the talk, where I'm going to describe what are the tech transfer capabilities that may be needed to do that efficiently. With that said, according to the FDA, of course, the direct compaction continuous manufacturing is now a mature field in terms of being graduated already in October 2021 from the ETP, which is the Emerging Technology Program that the FDA has. And according to the FDA as well, at that time, the applications were going faster than batch and continuous by 9 months, which was a very important incentive for the industry at that time. Now that it was graduated, I'm not sure how this is going right now, but because there has not been many applications happening in the last few years on this, or this approved. But this is what they say it's happening about 2023, 2024. So what is a graduation? Of course, it's just as when they were graduating this, now the reviewers are working at the same pace as before, perhaps. This is what may mean right now. But the good news is that there is another program that they are interested in, which is what they are calling advanced manufacturing technologies in pharma. And just a little bit of what was discussed already by Richard before. The first approval in continuous manufacturing was not 2015, but bear with me. Let's make it to Vertex for CAMB in 2015, and the first conversion by Janssen in collaboration with our group, Persista, in 2016. And then after that, several companies, I put here A+, because there may be some that they may have skipped, but some of them are here. According to the global market report in 2024, the global market for continuous manufacturing is about 2.5 billion. It was about 2.5 billion dollars in 2024, which is substantial, right? So still, if we consider continuous manufacturing as what I'm considering right now here in this talk, still it's big. Now, the next step is what we are talking about here, which is that led by the FDA, led by the regulators, the implementation of advanced pharma manufacturing wants to continue, right? So in the last 4 administrations, this is what I was saying before, it's not only in this administration, but from Obama already in 2016, with the executive order, first one that you see here, in continuous pharmaceutical manufacturing, is an emerging technology priority. And then after that, with Trump and with Biden, and also now with Trump, all those that you can see here, in all of them, the government, the US government is promoting the implementation of advanced pharma manufacturing through the programs that I called before, the ATT, right? And this new program is called Advanced Pharma Manufacturing. You can see this here. The guidance for the industry already appeared in December 2024. I don't know if you can see it, but if you want to ask me, I can send you the document. Basically, what advanced manufacturing technology means in this case, this broad case for the FDA, is that you need to incorporate a novel technology or to use a technology that it's already existing, but in a novel way, and at the same time, you have to substantially improve the manufacturing process for a drug product. This is what they understand this is very broad, of course, but this is what they understand as advanced manufacturing technology. So, but let's make it a little bit more granular. What could be understood, or what at least, I mean, I understand what Fernando, I mean, the group at least understand, and I hope you also have similar visions on what about advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing is. It has to be predictive, right? And it has to be automated at the same time. And at the same time, you have to be able to scale that and to control, to have good quality, having all the PAT and the controls in place, and if possible, transfer. If possible, it's a kind of a loose word. Of course, we want this to be transferable, but sometimes it's not so possible. But if you have a system here and you have another system here, can you transfer the product that you were making in this system to this other system seamlessly, so in an easy way? Well, this is another question that we may have, and this is something that we may discuss briefly here. So the first thing so for this to happen, you will need some tools, and here you have a graph that you may have seen if you saw some of the Fernando's talks. You may have seen it before, where in the center and in the verticals you have the platforms, and I'm talking here basically about the solid dose products. So, and then in the horizontals you have the areas in which you need to build the knowledge for this platform to work perfectly well. And in this case, I have those 5 areas represented here as material properties and the modeling of the process, of course, the sensors and all the information that you can get from the process in an automatic way to do process control, and finally, of course, not finally, at some point you need to do the process integration as well. Now, for each of those knowledge areas, you have an advanced, what we call an advanced manufacturing a toolbox. For example, for material properties, what you can have is a material property library. So now you build Each time you have a new material, if you already have a library, you can say, okay, this material will work similarly to this other material. So if you have already a knowledge of your process, you can much easily start the process in a much more efficient way. You don't need to do too much now if you know what your properties, the properties that you are measuring, which are connected, as we are going to see, to the process itself. And the same for all the other things, right? For modeling, if you have certain unit ops and you already model them, you build a library, so the next time you don't need to do that. You have already it. Here are other platforms that you can operate with when you produce APIs, biomolecules, etc. But basically, for each of those platforms in this scheme, the toolbox are similar, right? If for all of them, even when the material properties that you need to measure for one or the other are different, I mean, basically what you do, you need to build some knowledge in a similar way. So, what was the challenge that happened in the last few years and few months as well? That maybe also an opportunity also here for at least for the US. We will see what happened with the world, and what we'll see what happened also with the US as well. But basically, without going into politics, right? But basically, what we know here in the US, 80% of all pharmaceutical products depend critically from ingredients that are imported from China. Directly or indirectly, there is some critical component in the drug products here that are coming from China in a certain way. Now, if we have a trade war with China, or cross my fingers, something even worse, then of course there may be consequences on that realm, right? The other thing that happened that we all know about is the COVID a few years ago, and at that time, if you remember, both China and India temporarily suspended the exports of pharmaceutical ingredients to the US, and we have an issue as well. Those were the time in which the government started to pay attention to those issues, right? They say, okay, those are national security issues right now. And now the US government is highly interested in reshoring pharma manufacturing because of those things, and also because of political, that I will not go into, but political issues as well, right? But basically, there is we can see this also as an opportunity if you are here sitting in the United States. But the question is, what is required now? So it's not that one day you say, okay, I want to reshore the pharma industry to the US, you put tariff, and then magically you have all the companies here. Okay, this is not how things work, of course. You need ears to do that, right? And we all know this. But let's not talk again, as I said before, sorry for that. I talk a little bit about politics, unfortunately. I don't want to talk about politics. In order to reshore pharma to the US, first of all, what you need to do is to make it, of course, profitable, right? If not, it will not come. And it's difficult, right, to compete in this realm. So in this sense, advanced pharma manufacturing is key, because it can give the opportunity, at least in parts, for reshoring to the US. And this is done in different ways. One of the ways is because it not only allows for cost reduction, but also because of quality improvements. So you have much less recalls if your quality is better, and if you have less recall, of course, you get, in the long run, the products are cheaper. So 60% of the shortages are caused by, in nature, I don't know if it is the right word, but this is what I put, the quality control methodologies, right? So basically, if we want to bring the pharma at some point here to the US, then we need to decrease costs somehow and increase the quality. And as I said before, advanced manufacturing is a way to do that. Now, the other thing that may happen, because the products may be a little bit different if you are bringing them here, you need different excipients, et cetera, the products may need to be reformulated. And if you have to reformulate your products now, the continuous manufacturing, which is an advanced technology, even when it was already, as I said before, mature a little bit, but still is an advanced technology, allows for faster formulation and process development than batch, right? And I don't want to go into details on why, but basically you can do a full DOE in continuous in a couple of days that you cannot, and with a much less amount of material that at full scale, right, that you can do in batch. So this is an example of what I'm just saying. So, in the words of a famous Janet Woodcock, ex in the FDA also, she said already some years ago, even before COVID, that continuous manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing in pharmaceutics is essential to recreate domestic production. So this is the case that I wanted to make. So you want to reshore, you need advanced manufacturing. Now, one of the questions that people can ask is why this is not happening already, right? Why? I mean, there are companies, of course, that are working in continuous, but why there are no more companies? Why not? I mean, generics are involved in that. Because, of course, there is a lot of things that needs to happen. One is you have to build up the knowledge internally in your company. And if you don't have that, I mean, it's very costly and it takes a lot of time. So it's a lot of investment. Now, the lack of access to knowledge also means that you don't have the trained people, the trained personnel to do that as well. And also, articulating the realistic and implementing the plans is also impossible with the right people. Now, the other thing is the cost. I mean, to build up a continuous manufacturing facility, you need some tens of millions of dollars. I mean, 30, 20, 40, depending, but more or less. And the return in your investment, as you can see in the kind of scheme that you have here underneath, is about 6 years, 5-6 years. So who is putting this money up front for 5 or 6 years to start getting some of the return? So those are things why companies or generics, I would say, are not doing this. We can go through this, but basically it takes about 1 to 2 years. No, sorry, it takes about 1 year to select the products and the specific manufacturing equipment. This is more or less a guess. Of course, it's not that everybody is going to take exactly the same time. And again, I'm talking about people that they may not know yet how to do this process, right? For people who already know what to do, it will take much less. But then it takes another 2 years to receive, to order, and then to integrate and qualify your equipments. So if not more, but let's say conservatively, it may take about 2 years. And then it takes another at least 1.5 years, maybe also 2 years, to have the process develop and do the clinical trials and then submit for regulatory and approval. And then finally, you get approved, and then you start selling your product 6 years after you started with all this. So, of course, this is not practical. From the economical point of view, also not feasible. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative, how can this be implemented in a kind of wiser or more efficient way? If you have a tech transfer center that is also working in parallel with the CMO, then you can do this much more efficiently, as you are going to see here. So the first thing that's important to understand is the Tech Transfer Center will have all the required equipment, the instrumentations, and the know-how. This is why it's the Tech Transfer Center. And the CMO has to have also similar or the same equipment than the tech center. So they have to work together. If it's one, it's one. But if you have two, you can have two together. And while the company is learning, is being trained in the tech center to operate and to build the case and to understand how everything works in this time, in parallel, you are already making products in the CMO. So this is the way to do this much more efficiently. So of course, the selecting of the products and the development of the process takes much less now because you are doing with someone that already is experienced in doing this, while you are learning at the same time what you are doing. Then, immediately here, you order and receive the equipment. You start like 2 years before doing that. So, and at the same time that you are ordering your equipment, the CMO can produce the clinical supplies and can start manufacturing. So this shortens the term a lot. But also the other important thing is that in the first 2 years or 3 years, you only put $3 to $6 million for these things to happen. Of course, at the end, you have to put the other 20, 30 million to buy the equipment. But so by the end, you are going to have also the $30 million that you put in the other case. But in this case, you are starting production 2 or 3 years before. So now the equation is completely different. So this is a little bit of what I wanted to tell about a more efficient way to do this transition for some companies. So what I already said this, it's a little bit of a conclusion in a certain way. It cuts upfront cost by 80% or plus, and also cuts the time to market by 2/3, which is what I already show in the, this is of course estimation, right? And for case, it may change from case to case. And this is now the second part of what I wanted to discuss, which is what the tech transfer capability look like. So what do we need in terms in order to implement this? And this is what we are doing as CISO, but there are others, right, that can do this as well. I'm not saying that we are the only ones, of course, we are not. But this is one of the things that we are doing in the center. So if we talk about predictability, automation, and having all the sensors and the controls, one thing you can see this in this chart, where you need, of course, to have what we call process understanding. I mean, the industry knows about this because it's something that was forever already in the jargon of the industry. So here is the schematic of a continuous process. I mean, you have the feeders, and then you have, yeah, it's going fast. You have the feeders. Well, if you want a mill, you can have a mill. It depends on your material, but you may not need a mill, a blender, and the tablet press. And with those unit ops, you always have failure modes that may be triggered or not, depending on your process and depending on your formulation. Some of these can be, I'm getting agglomerates, for example. How is my content uniformity? How is my dissolution? Is it impacted or not? Is it changing or not, depending on the process? So those are the failure modes. Now, once you detect the failure mode that may be, I mean, all the possible failure modes in your system, you can connect those two responses. For example, for agglomerates, well, you have to have a sensor that measures agglomerates somehow. For content uniformity, well, you measure the blend RSD, for example. For dissolution, you have to do we are going to talk about doing, you have to do either dissolution offline or also you can do a model for dissolution. And then the other important thing is you connect those responses to material properties. For example, and I'm going to show some of the examples, for agglomerates, you can, with electrostatic or with adhesion or with flowability of the material as well, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have the failure mode. The failure mode are kind of trigger, or you will know if the failure mode is on or off because you look at your responses and the responses are connected to the material properties. If you know which material properties are involved in a certain failure mode and you know what are the ranges of those properties and which ranges you want to stay, then the sensor that you are having is giving you the response that you want, then you know that failure mode is off and it's not going to impact your process. So with that said, okay, let's go to the first of those 5 lines, material property library. This is the one I will spend a little bit more of time. The others I'm going to rush them because this is my subject, right? So that's why I will spend 2 slides on this and only 1 slide in each of the others. But basically, this is an example of the work that we did in which we have sorry, we have measured agglomerates for different materials, the agglomerate size of different materials, and we correlate the size of the agglomerates with the particle size and with the compressibility of the material. And what we saw is that, of course, something that is natural, if the material is very compressible, meaning it's cohesive, and the particles are small, then you have big agglomerates. And you don't have agglomerate if the particle size is very big. Of course, here in 70 microns D50, you don't have any agglomerate at all. Doesn't matter what you put there. But if you have a material that has a particle size of about, let's say, 30 microns, well, if it's not very compressible, it will not agglomerate, but if it's very compressible, it will start to agglomerate, right? So there is a line here for some materials that can be on one side or the other, more or less. And those are the ones you are maybe interested in, because the ones that they don't agglomerate, so okay, this is off. The one that agglomerate a lot, then you have to do something anyway with that. So what to do with the ones that are in the middle? Well, here is an example by another paper of the oh, I have to put the paper, I didn't put the paper. What was done here was to use ibuprofen 28 is because it was milled to 28 D50 was 28 microns. And this is here, right? So if you look at this, it agglomerates, right? It's on the underneath of this line. It agglomerates, but kind of mildly, in the sense that when you shear it, then you get no agglomerates at all. Now, if you do the same thing with this API here, you will not get rid of the agglomerate. So this is a case in which you can say, okay, the mechanical properties that you can measure in the lab can tell you how the process will go and what kind of shear you need to impart to prevent from having agglomerates in your system. And here's a second case where you have sticking of materials on the feeder or on the blender, and this is happening because the material gets electrostatically charged. So here we measure the charge as a function of the particle size, and you see the red points here and the blue points here. So the red ones are the ones that adhere somehow, but at the same time, what we found is that they change their properties, the flowability and the density. So why this is important? Well, it's important because in your models, what you do usually is you say, okay, this material has certain density, and then in my models, I fit this model with that number, with this density. But if this density will change when you process the material, you need to know, right? Because now your models will not work at all. So for those materials, the density will change. So you need to know when this will happen. How you know? Well, if you measure the electrostatic of these materials and the particle size for this, I mean, this is one example. So those material properties that you measure in the lab will tell you how the material will behave in the lab. Those are the kind of ideas or things that I wanted to convey. This is a different story. This is prediction of dissolution of tablets. It was done several times with different materials in different kind of tablets in the lab. But the idea is always the same. So you have to identify first the dissolution mechanism. This is the general idea, not a particular case. And then you define the targets for the conditions that you want to explore, and then you do experimental design. And then you have a non-destructive way to measure something in those tablets. For example, here in this case is NIR, which is the simplest, right? And then you correlate with those changes in your DOE, the signal that you're getting in the NIR with the dissolution. So you build a model, right? It doesn't need to be a mechanistic model. The model is, of course, in this case, is non-mechanistic. But you have through, for example, multilinear regression, you get your model, and with this model, you can predict dissolution. This is something that I think it's well understood. So in our case, we did it in several cases. I'm showing only one here, where this is the dissolution curve by curve, one by one, of the tablets, individual tablets, and this is the prediction of the dissolution that we're getting. Very good in this case. So with that said, the next, as I promised, will be shorter. So automation, optimization, you need for that modeling, and we talked a little bit about building models already, the sensors and the control toolboxes for that. So in your system, the one that you were going to see, but basically, I mean, you may have seen it before, that's why you're not seeing this now. This is the system that we have built here in New Brunswick. We have now another system that we built in Cranberry. So if you want to stop by at some point in our facility, of course, we can always organize something. Well, you have the feeders on top, you have the blender, and you have the tablet press. And then you have sensors everywhere. So everywhere means you can have soft sensors, of course, and then you have also hard sensors, if you want to call them in that way. So usually PATs like NER or Raman or something like that, or even the punches themselves. I mean, the force given in the punches also are used as sensors as well, because you can get from that the hardness, the friability, or the weight of your if you have a model to predict that from those measurements as well. So this is again the strategy or the structure of your sensor architecture is also something that you need to provide and to understand why you are doing this and how you are doing this. And with that, then you do real-time quality control, and then you can also do, of course, automatization. And in order to do that, you need to know the RTD of each of the parts and the whole system as well. This is what you can see here. So basically, when you have all those components together that are not something that people may know upfront if they never work on this, when you have all this, but you can learn, of course, if you have someone that can work with you and knows about this, then in those 2 years that we talk about, people in the company can, of course, learn, absorb all this tech transfer, and when the system is already commissioned in your site, then you're already working on this. This is a little bit of the story. The last thing was process transferability. We talk about the system being transferable. Bless you. The system being transferable. What does it mean? Well, if you have, let's say now you know about this process and you have a product that you produce in a certain system, and then you want to do this in a different one. Why? Well, it happened in the companies. I know that it happened because it happened to us. Not to us, I mean, we are not a company, but there was a company asking us if we can do this for them. So it happened that at some point there was a decision made at some point that they say, okay, we are going to change the line, we're going to bring another line or whatever, but we need to continue doing this product. How we make this product in a different line? Well, and this is important because what is usually the way to do a full DOE again, right? You have to do the whole study again in the new line. Well, it happens that if you know enough about your system, for example, there is no shear sensitivity of your material, intermediate materials and the final materials, then you can do this much simpler because the quality of your product will depend almost only on that. And if your blend is shear insensitive, meaning that when you change, you expose it to a different shear history, the properties, density, flowability, they don't change, then you don't need to do much more. I mean, you need to convince the FDA, right? Of course, but you don't need to do a full DOE. You need just to validate that your process is working in the other line as well. And now you save a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort. So this is a little bit of what I wanted to discuss in the terms of what are the critical material attributes that can affect the shear. Well, it's of course the packing, electrostatic, of course, if you shear it and you get electrostatic charges, then of course the material get different densities. So what we talked before, and also if you have granules that are friable, when you shear it a lot, then you break the granules, and so there are certain categories of materials and material property, ranges of material property that you need to look at to be sure that your material, that your blends are going to be shear insensitive. But now, if you check that box that your material is shear insensitive, great. Now, there is another approach, and we all are doing this in QBD. You can design the formulation to be shear insensitive, so you don't have that problem. So if you design the formulation to be shear insensitive, then the next time, if you need to transfer it, you transfer it seamlessly, without problem, right? Okay, so I think this is basically what I had. Yeah, this is all cartoonish of what I already said. I mean, you can transfer from one line to another, and you don't need a full DOE to do that, because the proposed approach is to have a shear-independent formulation. So it's what I already said. And so just to conclude, the advanced manufacturing pharmaceutical manufacturing can significantly accelerate the formulation and the process development and regulatory approval, which is something that FDA, as I said, is pushing for. And in the near future, we hope to see significant acceleration in adoption of advanced manufacturing. We are, by the way, right now working on 2 or 3 of them, of those designations. I don't know if you're interested. You can, of course, we can talk offside about these things. And then the way to create momentum in order to adopt continuous manufacturing, if you want to adopt, if a company wants to adopt, is the wisest way is to go with the tech transfer center, with the CMO. By the way, we are moved, I don't know if you know, we moved our facility to Cranbury. We are in a pharma facility now, where there is a CMO on the other side of a wall. I mean, we are Rutgers here, they are CIMIC here, but we can just move the equipment from one side to the other. So we do the development in one side, and then the manufacturing is happening on the other side of the wall, in the GMP part. So this is something that we are, that's why, this idea is that we move our facilities there. And then the last thing that I said already is the shear independent formulation, enable easy and fast transferability and scalability. So it's a good idea to think about producing the formulation from the very beginning being shear insensitive. With that, I want to thank, well, many people from CISO that make this story possible. And thank you also for staying here late to hear this guy to talk. What time is it, is the question. What time is it? What time we want to?
I'm going to ask the same question that I asked Professor Muzi about the changeover. You know, oftentimes, you know, CDMOs, they like, you know, run wet granulation on one, dry granulation on the other, I don't know, coating on the other for the clients. Yes, multiple clients, batch processes, but they are able to run that. But if they switch to continuous, how they can, I mean, again, you know, without giving up the secrets, you know, I'm sure that there were some secrets that were going on about how every company is approaching the changeover of product. You know, like when you switch from one product to the other, how long does it take? Because then the CDMO for that week, they can't run any other client with that line. You know, if you have like 5 equipment, those 5 equipment, they're stuck with that one client.
Okay, I don't know if it's per client, but what I mean, you need to of course do the cleaning of the whole system, and these take times, and they have to be validated, of course. Yeah. But I cannot tell you about the GMP side because I'm not the expert in that. You have to ask Simico.
But do you need like 5 lines to service 5 clients?
No.
How do you do switch from one client to the other?
No. The line will be the same. Okay. I mean, okay, I don't know how much I can say, but I know cases in which the line was bought by a company and not the CMO, and then the company owns the line, right? Yeah. This is not going to be the case here.
Okay.
So if this is not the case, then the company usually, it's not the company who owns the line. So of course, if a company, not the CMO, but another company owns the line, they are not going to allow other company to work on this. But this is not the case. This is not the business case here. If this was the question?
Yes. I mean, you know, switching from client to client.
Yes.
Okay. We have another question here.
Very nice, engaging talk. Certainly, Firoz saved the best for the last, I would say. So that was really nice.
No, please.
Quick question. Environmental control in the facility that you have, the tech center, for sensitive API, do you have the humidity control, those kind of systems set up so that if we need to operate at a very low moisture or a low relative humidity, do you have the environmental controls?
Okay, the question is if we have environmental control or if we have to take into account that for some materials that are humidity sensitive, if the material is humidity sensitive, of course you need to have the systems are closed. So continuous systems are usually closed. So you don't need to have the whole
Okay.
I mean the whole building to be humidity controlled.